for me, it's been more women. Seem like they just,
Mhm.
that had went through this molestation thing, and that is something that exists in families. That ancestral molestation type of situation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, and because what it does is it damages a person. It can damage a person and then allow them to act out in a way they wouldn't normally act out in situations. And I say that from personal experience because I had a friend um, um, that went to the church that I told you that had problems,
Right.
and we had grown up together and stuff, and the person went through uh, not how would I put this, not one person, but a couple of
What?
people
What?
related. Okay, I'm gonna leave that there. Related to the person. Okay,
That was a synagogue of Satan.
so but it wasn't so much. It was more relatives. Let me put it to you like that. And the reason I bring in the church is because the church knew
Yeah.
about this. People knew, right? But nobody did anything. And we were probably, 9, 10 years old,
And let me
you
ask you,
know?
let me ask you this and let you continue.
Yeah,
Do you find that in the society that we live in today, that people can be suspicious about a child being molested by a pedophile or a person being a pedophile?
hmm
That they don't try to, they're not inquisitive enough about that. But if you had a dog, that's what I can. If you had a cat outside
uh-huh.
for too long or something like that, everybody would be so concerned about that cat that you would have multiple people calling about the concern of that cat being outside.
Correct.
Because where we at today, because it's just so many different crazy things I hear concerning animals, and then when I hear about humanity, about the concern for humanity, the same type of compassion is not there always.
Right.
And I think that's a problem. But go ahead, but I want to throw that out there. But go ahead.
No, because the person was being molested by their family, right?
Right.
So, and the church knew, but didn't do anything about it. And it is one of the heaviest things that I've had to carry in my life because I was a kid, same age as the person that was very close to, and still am to this day. And I couldn't do, you know what I mean? I couldn't do anything because I wasn't an adult and who's going to take my word kind of a situation. But yeah, you know, even my family, they kind of knew. They knew, right?
About your situation?
About no, about
About
my
that?
friend's situation. Yes, they
Okay.
knew about that,
Yeah.
and still nobody moving anything through.
Yeah.
So years went on. We got older, and the person became a homosexual
Uh-huh.
because of what was
Right.
done to the person. See, that's where I'm getting where we're talking about all this.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And see, and I I'm just gonna say it was a young lady. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it took the young lady from being what she could have been in life,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
To something else, right?
Right.
So now she is homosexual, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but but in time we got around, we prayed, studied, sent to the right people, plus myself, my wife, changed, no longer homosexual.
Right. That's because you know why? Because at a young age, a seed was planted, the wrong kind of seed was planted, but it didn't grow.
Yeah.
Something stopped it from growing, and sometimes that seed get planted in young men and women, and nothing stopped it from growing. I mean, stop it from growing, it only flourishes it. The idea
Yeah.
of being
Yeah.
bisexual, the idea of being homosexual. You wasn't born. I mean, I've met people the same way, like you saying, the same
Yeah.
thing. And they will
Yeah.
tell you that their encounters, the homosexual encounters that they have had were based on a misunderstanding of who they really were, because
Right.
they were confused by someone older, or let's call it a pedophile, a pedo.
Yeah.
Talk about these pedos, because that's exactly what that is, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
go ahead, brother.
yeah, I was just gonna say because she had her own relatives do that stuff to her,
To
and
her,
I'll
right?
just leave that right there.
Yes,
But she had to. That's what I'm trying to tell everybody is that that's what corrupted her,
yes,
and she never would have gone that way
bro.
had that not happened. You see,
Yeah,
so when these people are talking about, oh, they're not like that. Okay, maybe that person isn't
yeah,
like that, but this person, to say the whole culture doesn't do those things
yeah. You can't say that.
and it's not a concern
It's a
would
lot.
be a lie. It would be
It's
a
a lot
lie.
because
And as I've just told you, from personal experience, like look at what it did and look at where that took things.
yeah.
And, luckily
I've
there
heard
was
that 1,000 times.
yeah,
I've heard it most that's what turned them that way.
yeah. And
And
that's what they told me
young
was
men say
that,
they didn't want to be this way, and that's not because you were born that, because of what had happened to them.
yeah, yeah.
Somebody turned
See,
somebody misconstrued. I mean, what turned messed their mind up and turned their sexual energy on too young, and they don't understand what's going on.
here's another good case too, Tank. Um, Cher and Sonny Bono's daughter, Chastity
Okay,
Bono. And
okay,
if you know anything about that, Chastity Bono became Chaz Bono, had a
yeah,
sex
I remember
change.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The story on that was that the nanny or somebody that kept her had been molesting her from the time she was a kid. It was another female,
Right,
right?
right.
And that's what happened to her,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I had also known another young lady that was molested by the babysitter and all that, and it switched her that way,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then her father was actually molesting young boys.
That's crazy. That's a culture
So
of pedophile
yeah,
station.
yeah, it was a trip when that came out, and I was like,
But now I've seen some dysfunctional families where everything be going on. You don't know what's going on up in there, you know?
yeah, and the mom was the only one that was straight laced in there, and she didn't know any of this stuff because it had been played and hidden from her. And it can be played and hidden from people. People are like, how they not know, at the house and things like that. But if people are very pro manipulative working in their tactics, they can hide
Mm-hmm.
those things better than what people think, you
Right,
know.
right.
And that's the thing. Yeah, some people they're just not good at hiding those things, but you got people
That can hide.
that
Yeah,
they can hide some stuff and be really pro at it,
right,
and you would have no idea what they really had going on under the surface,
right.
so to say, right? So
So eventually,
that's yeah. And by the time it comes out, a whole lot of things have been going on.
right.
And this was the culture, being from Southern California, there were a lot of child molesters, especially as you got into certain pocketed areas. There were a lot of child molesters that existed and exist out in California. And so you had to, because like I even found out, like there were some teachers in elementary school, that the very elementary school I went to,
Mm-hmm.
were molesters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they were there and
Yeah.
they had some stuff, going on. And I wasn't molested by them, but I did have a teacher who physically abused me as a kid, and I have neck problems to this day.
What?
Yeah, she grabbed the back. What happened was I got sick at school. I was in third grade and I had gotten sick at school, and I put my head on my desk, like kids do, put the head, I wasn't feeling good, put my head on the desk. And she was doing some sort of teaching exercise thing or whatever. And so she came by and she grabbed the back of my head. She didn't like that my head was on the desk. So she grabbed the back of my head and she pulled it back and she twisted it.
Oh man, it cracked your
Plop,
neck.
plop, 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 plop. Neck
What?
problems to this day, bulging discs and everything to this day.
You
My
get some
parents,
lawsuit money?
here's where we're going to go with that. My parents were talked out of a lawsuit by a smooth talking black dude from the county. They brought in that liked to rhyme, and
What?
all they need is just a little bit of bread, and did all that stuff, and talked him out of a lawsuit. And my parents were such idiots about it that it just went right over.
Right.
And what happened was people didn't believe it, because when I was in first grade, I had first come out to the high desert area of Southern California,
Mm,
and I was on the playground. And I can't explain it, Tank, but I was on the playground, and there was like the playground, and then there was like a fence, right?
right.
And I saw a woman standing there,
Hmm.
right? That wasn't really there. What I mean is, I guess you could say a spiritual ghost apparition. I don't know what happened,
Hmm.
but I saw this lady standing there wearing a white dress, and she was standing there, and then she was gone. And I was like, what is that? I was like, there's this lady. She was standing there. And so the school got wind of it, called the police, did a whole thing, brought them all out to, I'm serious, brought them all out to the
They probably
place.
playing a prank, huh?
Yeah, so I got labeled as a lying prankster. I saw what I saw. And
Right.
I could be out there on that playground right now, and I could point exactly where I saw it,
Hmm.
where this lady was. And when I got older, what that means is, for those of you that may know like paranormal stuff or believe in it or not, but when you study it, it means that someone had probably died there,
Hmm.
and they're probably more than likely buried there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or in that area, somewhere around there.
Hmm.
So that was the thing. And that's what I found out, that that's what that meant. And
Yeah.
because of that, I got labeled as that as a kid. So when this thing came out, the school didn't take it seriously. And of
Right.
course, that made it easy for them, right? Because they didn't have to really worry about it. So,
Yeah.
and that was the end of that. That was that. So I just went around having neck damage, and
Wow, that's
did a
crazy.
little bit of treatment at the beginning, and then my parents didn't go through with the rest of it.
You
And
didn't get you didn't get full therapy.
no, oh, absolutely not, absolutely not.
That's
So I had to live that. That was something I had to live in third grade. So I was super young in third grade, um, and I had to live with that. Now, what that did for me was, it taught me, because I mean, I already knew there were chirpy people, because I'm from Southern California, so that was no surprise to me. I mean, our
right.
house got robbed when I was like 5. They stole the TV out of the house when we came back home and were taking it. So I already knew
Yeah.
the evil, like the shadow says, the evil in men's hearts. I already
Yeah.
knew that there were, interesting people. I had already
You know what?
unfortunately been molested by that time. So I knew that there were evil people that had existed in that world. So that didn't really bother me. But what did bother me was the fact that your own parents, you found out where they stood. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
That was the part that got me.
So now
Was like,
you brought this to your parents and they didn't believe you?
they believed me because they had to do that. Her handprints were on the back of my neck, and my neck was all red.
Wow.
And when they ran X-rays, I had neck damage.
Wow.
So I had spinal damage,
Parents didn't
bulging
pursue the
disc and
lawsuit
things.
is what happened.
Yeah, they got talked out of the lawsuit. Yeah.
Talked out of it, yeah.
So they got talked out of the lawsuit. The school thought I was a quack anyway, so it didn't go anywhere because I saw that ghost apparition. And so that just came together. My parents didn't fight for it, didn't try to push for it. And that smooth talking guy from the school board or the county, whatever, he had worked things so tightly around them that let me know my parents are really freaking stupid, because that's what that means. Like, because there's no way if something happened to Luke, my son,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Rebecca and I were sitting there is no smooth talking anybody that's going to tell me anything. Because
right.
I'm going to look at his neck and be like, yeah,
Something
there's
wrong.
a handprint that's not the size of a kid that's an adult hand on the back of his neck. There's a problem.
Right.
Okay. Because not only am I going to sue you for everything that you got, I'm going to find that teacher. I don't care if she's male or female. I'm going to grab a folding chair like Bret the Hitman Hart right here. And you know what's going to happen after that.
Right. Now look,
That's what's going to happen.
the hitman. Yeah.
That's right.
This,
Best there is, best
let me
there
ask you
was,
this, man.
best there ever will be.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When it come to this pedophilia thing we're talking about, these people who are pedophiles,
Uh-huh.
there's a couple of people I didn't know that got brought up on charges of pedophilia, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have known that they were because they are
Right.
good at camouflaging and hiding. This is what I'm trying to get to.
Yes.
They're very good at hiding in plain sight, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta say the church. You can
Yeah.
look in, and you've worked in Hollywood,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
music industry,
Yes.
uh,
Which I was around.
all kind of little, places where they hide right in plain sight.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, because they're predators, really, they're looking for like in nature, a predator don't look for the strongest antelope to kill. They look for the weakest one. What they perceive to be the weakest. Okay, he's not running as fast, or they looking for the one that's sick, kind of like
Yeah.
or older or slower. That's the ones they make their targets, you know, in the wild.
Yeah.
And I think in the pedophile does the same thing. But now I want to talk about why are these pedophiles, and I want to ask the question,
Mm-hmm.
allowed to exist? Why
Mm-hmm.
why was R. Kelly allowed after urinating on a 13-year-old baby? Now,
Correct.
everybody knew it was him. I didn't
Yeah.
ever see it, but from what they saying, everybody, I don't want to watch no grown man pee on no baby, man.
I've seen
I
not the whole thing, but I've seen a section of the footage, and it was definitely him.
Yeah. So my point, how the people around, because even with the R. Kelly thing, we got to talk about it because we talking about pedos and he falling in line as a pedo. You might like how he sing. I like his songs. I like how he sing too, but he's a pedophile. So lost credibility with me. I don't care. Y'all can go slow drag, dance to his songs or whatever.
People love his music. My
I mean,
gosh, they love his music.
I
They
love it.
love it.
I
They're
did.
like, "Hey, it's the best thing ever." I'm like,
I love,
okay.
he's talented as a singer, but just talent does not make you right. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And this is what
Absolutely.
I mean. Because he's talented, people they knew this about him, but because he was possibly part of their bread ticket. So you got to watch all this foolishness. So they kept their mouths closed. It's just same thing with homosexuality. How many people were engaged in it? And we don't know today. And they're probably sitting right up there in the Senate right now.
Yes.
Sitting in
Yes.
Congress right now.
Remember that congressman they busted back in what was that? 08, 07, maybe 06. He was in the bathroom and he was trying to call a male prostitute. He was
Who?
tapping his foot. It was some senator, some
Oh,
Republican
man, I mean,
senator.
they all, bro. I'm gonna
Yeah,
tell
he
you,
was like
like I'm gonna tell you
tapping
this.
something about tapping his foot was supposed to
Oh yeah,
attract.
yeah. Next time or
Yeah,
something.
and
Yeah,
he
yeah. I
was
heard about that.
stomping that foot, and he was trying to get
That
that,
foot.
and it ended up being a police officer that walked
Uh,
walked in the bathroom and got him.
look,
Yeah.
they had little rest stops. Remember where they used to
Oh
meet?
yes, yes.
This is what I mean about that pedophile type of mentality. How
Uh-huh.
how it's quiet and loud at the same time. You know,
Yeah.
we heard about the bathroom stops and all that kind of stuff.
Well, there's a lot of them in California. There were. I don't know what's going on with them now, but back in the day,
Then
in
yeah.
the 90s, there were 80s and 90s, there were a lot of stops in California. And one of my closest friends told me, he said, yeah, back in the day, I stopped at this bathroom to actually use the bathroom. And this guy came out of nowhere. This dude came out of nowhere and said, hey, you
Oh,
party? And he's like, not with you. He's like, I hightailed it out of there. He
man,
was like, it was one of those stop
it just go to
points.
show you. It go to show you how the mentality of people who are predators, who are sexual predators, uh, like this, how thorough that mentality is. How that's a thought out process.
Yeah.
Or we gonna start meeting at rest stops or whatever they was doing, right?
That's how George Michael, remember? George Michael
Yeah.
got busted at a public restroom in
Not,
LA
not Mr. I'll
during
tumble for you. Not Mr. I'll tumble for you.
no, that's Boy George.
Oh,
That's George Michael was
who was George? I'm thinking.
last
Oh, okay. I'm
last
thinking about Boy.
Christmas. Remember that song Last Christmas? Da,
I'm
that
not.
they play every year. Last Christmas, he had that song called Faith. Faith, the faith, the faith.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Got
Yeah.
it. Fake.
Okay. And he was part
Yeah,
of that group
I
called
remember that.
Wham
I remember.
back in the day. And he filled in for Freddie Mercury from Queen, sang for them. Like this, George Michael's like one of the biggest stars.
I know what you talk. I got it mixed up with Boy George.
Yeah, George. Yeah, George Michael got busted. Boy George is gay, by the way. So that yes, he is gay.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
he's
That's
still
why.
alive.
That's the first thing I
Boy
thought.
George, George Michael, both of them gay. Um, but George Michael got busted in L.A. at a nice public restroom place in LA, and the a guy was taking his son to the bathroom, and George Michael and some dude were in a stall doing their thing. And
Wow.
who knows how much that affected that kid? Unfortunately, it was in the bathroom, or whatever kids were in that bathroom.
Ain't no telling, man. I mean, that's how
Yeah,
manipulative they are. But I want to ask you this question:
yeah.
why does pedophilia really don't get the noise it needs to get in the media or in social media?
Because they have the
Seems like
receipts.
ever since the LGBTQ agenda really took off, you
Yeah.
don't hear much about pedophilia no more. And you start to see more glimpses of pedophilia. Like I'm talking about the Dalai Lama sticking his doggone tongue in a child's mouth. You start to see more glimpses of what we kind of can recognize as being pedophilia, but people are just laughing it off as proper behavior. So when do we take a stand? When does America or whatever the world take a stand against pedophiles? Because
Well,
we can't act like they don't exist. We can't act like these stories we're talking about aren't true, that they haven't been heard before. We can't say that these are lies because they are not. We talking from experiences we had with people who were known pedophiles. Like I say, Raymond Miles, look him up, pedophile. R. Kelly, pedophile. Those 120 priests or bishop, whatever they are, pedophiles.
yes.
Any industry, any organization that harbors it is just as guilty. So
I agree.
what are we prepared to do? What's the suggestion on what we do?
Well, I'll tell you what I did when Rick and I were doing investigations. We actually went around to, we did child trafficking cases and stuff like that. So we actually went around and fought it. But there was so much of it, and this is before the explosion happened. So this is like, let me see. Rick and I, Rebecca and I got married. So 4 or 5 years of doing things of that nature, plus other cases. We went looking into that, and Barstow, California, was a breeding ground for a lot of child molesters. I've never seen child molester cases go in a place so fast. Like they had so many.
Where's that at?
Barstow, California, right outside Fort Irwin.
And is it still the same way?
Probably. I don't think it was like that before I got out there, and it probably will be that way because there was a guy. I told this on Herc's channel, that looked like a homosexual Mario. That's the best way I can explain him. Like, if you ever seen the Mario video game character,
Don't tell me
like,
he had the black leather. Did he have the black leather boots and all that kind of stuff?
no, he dressed like a
Not fishnet shirt,
like
kind of
a frumpy athletic kind of look, like running shoes. But he had the Mario mustache, and his hair was black, and and
right,
he was chunky, and he kind of had a Mario looking face. So he looked like a homosexual Super Mario. That's what he looked like,
so
Mario and Luigi.
he had the men at work look.
He looked like Mario and Luigi.
Macho man.
He just looked like a really, like, when you saw him, you thought like homosexual man
Right.
with a real trimmed up mustache, but he looked like if Mario video game character was
Like Mario.
gay and
Right.
hanging out there, he looked like that, and that's what he looked like. But this guy was notoriously known for going to little league baseball games and soccer games, AYSO soccer games, stuff like that, and he would pick up little boys,
Right. Right.
and he would do little weird things to them. And this guy, sometimes I would see him once a month in the courthouse. Sometimes it felt that way because he was in there so much. And he would go in and he would come in and say, "Good morning," like all funny, okay.
Right.
And I kept seeing this guy, and he looked like a homosexual Mario. And I was like, and I asked my supervisor, I said, "Look, what's the deal with that guy? Why is he here so much?" And he just strikes me a little odd.
Right.
And he said, "Look, that guy goes around little league games, and he is a straight on child molester, but he's somebody's importance."
It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter.
Yeah, son. Exactly. But I'm explaining. That's how he got away with it. He was somebody's son or something like that.
Let me add
Somebody
this.
connected.
Let me add this because what you're saying, it made me think about this. Do you believe the LGBTQ agenda is another refuge for pedophiles? Because
Absolutely.
we've seen them take refuge in churches. We've seen them take refuge in Hollywood, in entertainment, in music, in every area. So why wouldn't this be a greater opportunity for a pedophile? And let's just think about it. To say, okay, I'm just part of the LGBTQ community and continue to prey on young men and young women and use the LGBTQ as a covering. You see what I'm saying? And if you come against them to utilize recently instituted LGBTQ laws to keep their identities hidden. You get
well,
me?